Happy here, and today we have a new episode in the art review series. And today we'll be checking out the work of Sayo Kumura. I'll link all of the links in the description below. And what I do like about this artist is the impressionism. And if you've been in my channel for long, you do know I have a bias for impressionistic artwork. Yes, it's just raw, it's just real. And if you're very sketchy and just not, like you're somewhat rebellious, chances are you're very sketchy and impressionistic. I do think this was done in Clip Studio Paint, because in Clip Studio Paint, there is a feature when it comes to mixing colors that's inherent in the brush. Like you don't have to use a mixer brush. There's a feature in Clip Studio Paint where if you paint, say with a simple round brush, it can look somewhat like this, and when you keep painting over different colors, it mixes on its own. So it's a mix of an actual paintbrush and a mixer brush at the same time. What I do know is that in Photoshop, it's not a feature there yet. You do need to use a mixer brush. So I'm assuming this was done maybe in Clip Studio Paint or a similar program. So this is a scene from a fan art of Chainsaw Man, which is a recent anime. Oh my god. This is a character named Denji. And then this chick is called, what's her name? Makima. I like how he was able to, or she, or this artist was able to capture the likeness of both of these people or both of these characters. And you can see her feeding him something. I'm not sure what this thing is. A snail, perhaps? It looks like a snail. The way the painting is done, the colors, it's somewhat messy, but I like it. I do like it. There's a mixture of a line work, so I'm assuming the line work was done no shit beforehand. And even with the line work, there is a good decent amount of variety when it comes to line weights. Some parts are kind of heavily done and then it kind of fades out a bit. It adds a bit of, and you'll see comic book artists do this as well. It just adds more, it makes the page less printed or digital or somewhat like mechanical. It adds that human element to it, I think. The colors are very warm. Some accent colors like not complementary, but just bonus colors like yellow and green. It's kind of out of place, but most of the entire piece is just red and orange and yellow. So the line weights, so some decent line work with some decent line weight, plus the very intense colors of highly mixed colors afterward. And it does blend together. Like you can see for some parts of the line work, it does fade away. So yeah. So maybe some parts of the painting are being painted over and some parts are just not, like it's more flat, essentially. But here we have another piece. I'm not sure where or what anime is this, but it's still there. This one is somewhat finished. So the accent color here is just red. And you can see that kind of coarse shadow lighting where it's somewhat glowing between the dark shadow and the light area. There's this dash of red, which is pretty cool. I do see some blurring in the edges, so it's more of a finished illustration, I would say. Maybe there's a bit of like RGB shift here, just to add a bit of oomph. But I think this is way more finished. And there's not a lot of super highly, it's not as impressionistic as the first or the recent piece we reviewed. So here we have another piece of Chainsaw Man, another fan art. It's still somewhat messy, kind of like the first one we saw or reviewed. It's a mix of line work plus some very impressionistic. Look at the way the folds were done here. It's super messy. It's more of like an abstract mixed media kind of painting, but it looks amazing. You can see a bit of line work there, the initial rough line work with some decent line weight, and then it just goes haywire from there. And even the background looks nice. Adds a bit of chaos, and yes, I like it. It's a mix of like sketchy line work. Wait, the line work is not as sketchy as, say, the previous artist we reviewed, Tabao something, or at Tabao_sub. There is some decent, somewhat planned line work, because you can tell not just by the proportions of it, or not just how it's done, but the way the line weights are done. Like it's a bit more planned, I guess. It's not finished, it's not like super fine, but it is somewhat planned and efficient. And obviously it's balanced out and complemented with the chaoticness of the impressionistic kind of painting approach. Lots of mixing happening here. Here we have a chick. She's kind of crying. Maybe did her eye just pop out or something? Decent, some line work. It's hard to see the line work in the edges of this chick. Let's just zoom in. There you go. It does disappear in the shoulders and the arms, but you can still see parts of that initial line work there. So something happened in her eye, and it's growing some kind of flowers or something. Very emotional. Or she's crying blood. This seems somewhat dark, very, yes, emotional, evil in a way. But look at how efficient the line work is. And it does have a decent amount of line weight. I do like the chaos or how the hair was done. Lots of mixing. It's still under one color scheme, like dark red, dark maroon. But there's a lot of like variety in terms of values. And I always like how the anime types of hair is done, especially when it's colored. It looks so vibrant and lovely. Even if it's chaotic like this one, it still looks pretty cool. The rendering of the body is pretty simple. Not that it's pretty close to just flat to the flats, but a bit of like saturation in the tips of the fingers and such. It almost looks like some kind of watercolor painting. Here we have another. It's a fuller piece, but it still has that same effect. I guess it does have that watercolor wash chaos because there are watercolor impressionistic paintings as well. Now this scene, it does remind me a bit of Evangelion. The color scheme perhaps. I'm not sure what this is about, but it seems emotional, dark. And yeah, I think from afar it does look like a watercolor painting. The way the way things blend out a bit too much, where it's way more than say the way oil painting is blended. So I think there's some watercolor influence here, I think. Watercolor wash paintings, where you kind of let the water bleed out. I like it. Here it's same. It's hard seeing the actual line work, but it's there. It's been overtaken by the actual paint. I do like how the eyes were done. It's not as it is like this whole thing feels magical to me. Like she's being taken away. She is seeing something out of the ordinary. The way the hands were done, I do like it. Heavy on the shape design, and if you get the shape of the hand right, and it's interesting from the beginning, the coloring process where you add the shadows and such, it's going to look pretty cool still, or even cooler than it already is. So do invest your time getting the shapes right, getting some interesting shapes in the beginning. So for this piece, it's a popular piece of his or her or this artist's. 20K. That's a lot. It still reminds me of Evangelion. Maybe the mood. It's somewhat like sad and emotional. For the sketch, this part right here, very sketchy. I think there's way more definition with this chick. I think this is the main focus. She does have way more contrast, so your eyes are led to this chick more than this guy. He almost fades into the background a bit. Some contrast here with the flowers, and then the heavier or way more contrast with this specific character. Especially with that orange, it makes the face pop out more. And obviously the dress in comparison to the background, the blue background. So she's watching this guy doing something, taking her shades off. Nice. Very loose painting. So here we have another piece. Yes, a lot of abstract art. So it's kind of a mix between like watercolor paintings, watercolor wash paintings with a bit of abstract art. And you can tell by the way the backgrounds are done. It's almost always flat. It's not a full scene. It's heavy. Like there's more rendering, more 3D-esque or more 3D-ness with the actual character. But in the background, it's left as an abstract painting. So it does have a very mixed media approach. I do like the eyes. This is very typical in anime types of artwork. Very pretty. The way the nose is done, super simple. A bit of that light patch there to indicate some form of the nose. I love it. Again, the hair. It's very messy, but it feels like it's hair. Lots of blending. I'm assuming with some kind of interesting brush. I'm not sure what program was used here, but I'm assuming it's CSP, Clip Studio Paint. I like the hands, the gloves. So I think I'll leave the art review here. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the art review. I recommend checking out the work of Sayo Komura. I will link the links in the description below. So I'll see you in the next art review.